Harley-Davidson is heading straight into a crisis that could rewrite everything you thought you knew about the brand. Sales are collapsing, strategies are failing, and the stakes have never been higher. Miss the end and you'll miss the truth. Watch until the end. Don't miss it. Forecast collapse. Harley-Davidson stunned investors when it pulled its annual forecast, citing a wave of unpredictable tariffs and global trade battles. On the surface, this may sound like cautious corporate bookkeeping, but the deeper signal is unmistakable. Harley no longer feels confident about its to project even short-term stability. For a company once synonymous with reliability and ruggedness, the sudden retreat from transparency feels like a crack in the chrome. Executives argued that tariffs imposed by Europe and other regions made pricing unpredictable, but the decision to withhold forecasts stripped away one of the last reassurances shareholders had. When a company refuses to predict its own future, it is telling the market that the storm is already inside the factory. The numbers that Harley did reveal painted a grim picture. Motorcycle shipments for the last fiscal year tumbled by more than half, falling from over 150,000 units to fewer than 75,000. Revenue followed the same trajectory, eroding quarter after quarter until margins nearly collapsed. Wall Street analysts described the situation as unprecedented for an American icon. Consumers once lined up for new Harleys, but today dealerships often look deserted, with unsold models gathering dust. The withdrawal of guidance was not a minor accounting trick. It was an admission that Harley is caught in forces it cannot control. Even longtime dealers, many of whom have weathered recessions and industry downturns, admitted that this moment feels different. The uncertainty around tariffs has inflated costs, driven up prices, and left customers confused. Riders in Europe who once could justify the premium of owning an American cruiser now face sticker prices approaching luxury car territory. If demand vanishes overseas, Harley cannot rely solely on a shrinking American customer base. The company's silence is not calming nerves, it is amplifying fear. Harley's gamble on a single motorcycle would raise the stakes even higher. Strike Gamble. The rescue plan had a name, the Strike Series. In boardrooms and press releases, executives presented it as a bold play to win back growth by courting younger riders with a stripped-down, supposedly affordable motorcycle. It was marketed as a bridge between Harley's heritage and the next generation of riders, a product line meant to bring fresh blood into a brand that has been aging along with its customer base. The logic was simple on paper. Target new buyers in their 20s, give them a lower-priced entry point, and keep them in the Harley family for life. But the logic falls apart the moment it leaves the spreadsheet. Younger riders have consistently turned away from Harley's offerings, preferring nimble sport bikes, versatile adventure models, or cheaper imports from Japan. The Strike Series, priced just below $6,000, looks like a bargain in Harley terms, but it still lands far above what competitors offer in the same segment. And unlike the classic Iron 8 83 or other beloved models, the Strike does not carry the weight of Harley's identity. Critics argue it looks like a generic commuter bike with a famous logo slapped on the tank. To an audience that values authenticity, this feels like a hollow gesture. The obsession with chasing younger riders has backfired before. The Street Series, Harley's earlier attempt at entry-level appeal, flopped so badly that dealerships were stuck with inventory for years. The Iron 8 83, by contrast, had been a runaway success precisely because it was a true Harley in both style and sound. Abandoning that in favor of watered-down models left many loyal riders shaking their heads. The Strike risks repeating the same mistake at a higher cost at a time when Harley cannot afford another misstep. Behind the glossy marketing, the harsh math of production told a darker story. If you're following this breakdown, take a second to hit that like button. It helps push this story out to more riders and more voices. Drop your thoughts in the comments too. Cost crisis. Harley's plan to launch the Strike Series collided with an unforgiving reality. Global supply chains were already breaking down. Chip shortages, raw material inflation, and shipping delays combined to strangle production schedules. Steel and aluminum prices jumped dramatically after trade disruptions. while the microprocessors needed for modern rider assist systems became scarce. Every additional delay pushed costs higher, and Harley's attempt to position the Strike as a budget motorcycle began to collapse under its own math. Executives admitted that the Strike had been in development since 2021, but the longer it stayed in the pipeline, the more expensive it became to finish. Engineers scrambled to redesign systems around whatever components they could source. Instead of celebrating innovation, managers whispered about compromises. Could Harley really deliver a sub-$6,000 bike while paying triple for parts? Could the quality live up to the brand's legacy if substitutions were made at every turn? Riders who bought Harleys for their durability feared they were about to receive something fragile. On the retail side, dealers complained about thin allocations and delayed deliveries. Customers who placed deposits grew restless as promised timelines slipped. A motorcycle marketed as affordable was already becoming scarce, pushing some buyers toward competitors who could actually put machines on showroom floors. Harley's strategy of build less, charge more seemed especially tone-deaf when inflation was eroding disposable income for the very demographic they were trying to capture. Instead of drawing younger riders in, Harley risked driving them permanently away. Those financial pressures soon collided with a leadership crisis at the very top. If Harley's future feels shaky, at least your safety doesn't have to be. Upgrade your helmet, gloves, and boots now. Link is in the description. Leadership clash. Behind closed doors, Harley was tearing itself apart. Activist investors, frustrated by years of weak returns, pushed for radical changes. Some demanded that Harley abandon its experiments with entry-level bikes altogether, focusing instead on luxury touring machines that could be sold at higher margins to older, wealthier buyers. Others insisted that the Strike series was essential to the company's survival, even if it meant swallowing losses in the short term. The board fractured, and the pressure eventually forced the chief executive officer to announce his departure. Leadership turmoil could not have come at a worse time. Dealers needed clear guidance, workers at plants like York needed job security, and investors wanted consistency. Instead, Harley delivered headlines about infighting and a revolving door at the top. Without a stable vision, the company's attempts to reassure the market rang hollow. Every announcement about cost savings or new strategies was overshadowed by speculation about who would be in charge tomorrow. Rival brands like Indian, backed by Polaris, quietly capitalized on the chaos, presenting themselves as steadier alternatives. The cultural divide inside Harley was just as sharp. Some executives clung to the romantic image of Harley as an outlaw brand for seasoned riders, while others pushed for a Silicon Valley-style reinvention that embraced electric bikes and youth marketing campaigns. The clash created paralysis, with no strategy strong enough to rally all sides. Dealers, employees, and customers sensed the indecision. Instead of bold leadership, Harley projected weakness. All of the turmoil funneled into one fragile hope, the Strike series. Savior or sinkhole. Harley-Davidson put the Strike series at the center of its revival story. Marketing campaigns painted it as the long-awaited comeback model, the motorcycle that would restore volume sales and give the company credibility with riders who had never considered a Harley before. The promise was bold. A sub-$6,000 bike with the iconic nameplate, lean enough for daily commutes but still carrying the aura of the brand that built its reputation on rebellion and freedom. Executives spoke as though the Strike was more than a product. It was a lifeline. Yet beneath the glossy reveals and optimistic soundbites, many insiders whispered doubts. Could a machine designed under the pressure of collapsing sales truly live up to Harley's heritage? The engineering compromises demanded by cost targets made it feel less like a revolution and more like an act of desperation. Longtime enthusiasts looked at early images and prototypes and felt no spark. The frame seemed too light, the lines too generic, and the finish too plasticky. A motorcycle that was supposed to lure new buyers risked alienating the very riders who once celebrated Harley as a badge of authenticity. The Strike also carried an outsized burden. Unlike past launches that complemented a healthy product lineup, This bike was being positioned as the savior for a brand already reeling from tariff shocks and profit collapses. By tying so much of Harley's future to a single entry-level machine, leadership magnified the stakes to dangerous levels. If the strike failed, the consequences would not just be poor sales numbers. It would be another signal to Wall Street, unions, and global dealers that Harley had lost its grip on its destiny. Yet the very riders Harley counted on were looking the other way. The youth disconnect. For decades, Harley's marketing teams have obsessed over the dream of winning over 20-somethings. They plastered edgy imagery across social media, hired influencers to pose with new models, and even experimented with smaller, cheaper designs. But the results speak for themselves. Younger riders still gravitate towards sport bikes, naked bikes, and versatile machines from Japanese and European brands. Walk into a college parking lot or a suburban garage and you will see Kawasaki's, Yamahas, and Hondas lined up, not Harleys. The reason goes beyond price. Harley's image is rooted in a rugged, heavyweight culture that resonates with riders who are often older, wealthier, and nostalgic. Younger buyers are drawn to speed, agility, and customization. They want machines that match their flexible lifestyles, not a heavyweight cruiser built for endless highways. Even when Harley introduced models aimed directly at this audience, such as the Street Series, the effort flopped. Riders dismissed them as uninspired knockoffs lacking the soul of the brand. The strike, despite all the hype, risks following the same doomed trajectory. Interviews with younger riders reveal the same pattern. They acknowledge Harley's history, but admit it feels like something for their parents' generation. A 24-year-old rider might respect the sound of a Harley V-twin, but still choose a nimble four-cylinder sport bike that costs less and performs better. The strike was supposed to bridge this gap, yet its styling and performance feel caught between worlds. Not Harley enough to satisfy loyalists, not modern enough to attract the new generation. Price tags turn that cultural gap into an even bigger chasm. Cheap but costly. On paper, the strike seems affordable. Harley promoted it as a sub-$6,000 bike, finally giving first-time riders a chance to buy into the brand without emptying their wallets. But in practice, the headline number is misleading. By the time taxes, dealer fees, and mandatory add-ons are included, most riders will face monthly payments that rival the cost of far more capable machines from competitors. A motorcycle that looks cheap in advertisements becomes expensive in reality. Harley's pricing strategy backfired. Cutting production to raise per-unit prices alienated consumers. Even the Iron 883 soared past $10,000, pricing out dreamers. The strike faces the same trap: raise costs and lose buyers, cut corners and lose authenticity. Critics also note that a cheap Harley undermines the mystique that once set the brand apart. For decades, Harley symbolized craftsmanship and permanence. Introducing a budget line that feels disposable risks diluting the image further. Riders do not just buy motorcycles, they buy identity. If the strike feels like a watered-down compromise, Harley may end up damaging the very brand equity it hoped to preserve. Dealers on the ground quickly felt the strain of those miscalculations. Dealer fallout. Dealers are the front line of Harley's empire, and they are feeling the collapse in real time. Across the United States, long-standing dealerships in cities like San Francisco and New York have shut their doors, citing weak traffic, high operating costs, and a lack of compelling models. For years, dealers survived downturns by relying on loyal local communities, but even that lifeline is thinning. When a brand's core buyers hesitate, showrooms become ghost towns. The strike was meant to attract younger riders and revive dealer traffic. Instead, razor-thin margins, inconsistent shipments, and weak sales disappoint. Financing shocks deter buyers, spreading frustration from customers to dealers, deepening disillusionment rather than delivering the promised Harley revival. Some owners have gone public with their frustration, saying that Harley's corporate leadership seems disconnected from the reality on the showroom floor. They complain about inventory policies, pricing models, and the relentless focus on short-term stock performance rather than long-term brand health. Dealers want machines they can sell with confidence, not products that leave them defending compromises. Without strong dealer support, even the best motorcycle cannot gain traction. Beyond America's borders, the crisis only deepened. Export apocalypse. In Europe, Harley-Davidson motorcycles may soon carry price tags more shocking than a luxury car. Trade disputes between Washington and Brussels have pushed the European Union to raise tariffs on imported American motorcycles to 56%. That means a touring model that sells for just over $30,000 in the United States could climb toward $124,000 once landed in Germany, France, or Italy. Even loyal Harley fans abroad balk at those figures. The machines that once symbolized freedom on the Autobahn now resemble status symbols reserved for the ultra-wealthy. Europe's challenge is bigger than tariffs. Rising fuel costs, strict emissions rules, and younger workers treating bikes as luxuries shrink demand. Losing this market means forfeiting sales and decades of prestige, leaving Harley's mystique a fading relic behind showroom glass. Executives admitted privately that they cannot eat the tariff costs, nor can they expect European riders to shoulder the difference. The result is paralysis. Models sit in warehouses unsold, dealers hesitate to order inventory, and Harley's reputation overseas takes on the smell of dust and obsolescence. Tariffs have turned a symbol of American export pride into a warning sign for global vulnerability. The tariff shock was mirrored by collapsing demand at home and abroad. Sales collapse. In North America, Harley's sales trajectory is equally grim. Shipments across the United States and Canada have plummeted, falling by double-digit percentages in consecutive quarters. Dealers once packed with chrome and leather now count fewer visitors, and showroom floors that used to feel like social clubs often echo with emptiness. The same economic forces haunting Europe, high costs, consumer uncertainty, and cultural shifts away from heavyweight cruisers, are pressing down on Harley's home base. Asia-Pacific's promise has vanished. Sales in Japan and Australia are plunging, while Indonesia and Thailand favor cheaper local or Japanese bikes. Even China resists, with regulations and utilitarian culture. Harley's global expansion map now bleeds red ink instead of growth. The company's overall global volume has contracted so sharply that analysts wonder whether Harley can maintain its dealer network at all. Plants in the United States operate below capacity, and layoffs loom as inventory piles up unsold. A business model built on volume cannot survive with half the output, and yet that is exactly where Harley finds itself. The collapse is not localized to one region or product. It is systemic, spreading across continents like a crack through a windshield. Wall Street, however, seemed to be watching a very different movie. Stock illusion. Despite the freefall in sales, Harley's stock price has defied gravity. Investors cheered as quarterly reports highlighted clever financial maneuvers, aggressive share buybacks, creative accounting, and an expanded financing arm that pumped profits from lending rather than selling motorcycles. The Harley-Davidson Financial Services division became a profit engine, generating returns even as fewer bikes left the factory floor. On paper, the numbers looked stable. In reality, the core business was rotting from within. Harley's buyback shrank share counts, inflating earnings per share. Glossy press releases touted cost cuts, masking collapsing demand. Wall Street rewarded the illusion, pushing stock upward even as dealerships shuttered, workers worried over jobs, and customers steadily abandoned the brand. For critics, the contradiction is obvious. A motorcycle company should rise and fall on the strength of its motorcycles, not on the tricks of corporate finance. Yet Harley seems more focused on appeasing shareholders than satisfying riders. The long-term danger is clear. You cannot financial engineer loyalty. The stock may look healthy today, but if no one is riding Harleys tomorrow, the collapse will be sudden and brutal. While investors cheered paper profits, riders made their own exit. Rider exodus. The erosion of Harley's customer base is more devastating than any quarterly loss. Across the United States, once loyal riders feel betrayed. Prices have soared, service has faltered, and the identity of the brand seems to have drifted into confusion. Riders who grew up idolizing the roar of a V-twin now find themselves priced out of ownership. Some turn to the used market, refusing to buy new. Others defect entirely, choosing Japanese or European alternatives that offer better reliability at lower costs. The Harley logo, once a badge of honor, risks becoming a reminder of corporate arrogance. Harley community events have dwindled. Once thriving owners groups now struggle to recruit. Riders complain of overpriced parts, weak dealer support, and uninspired models. Younger buyers dismiss Harley, leaving the brand stuck between disillusioned veterans and indifferent newcomers abandoning its legacy. The most painful truth is that Harley's decline is not caused only by external tariffs or global recessions. It is also the product of alienated customers who no longer see themselves reflected in the machines or the marketing. When the heart of a brand departs, balance sheets become empty shells. The exodus of riders is a wound no financial trick can hide. History suggested where this kind of exodus could ultimately lead. India precedent. In 2020, Harley-Davidson abandoned India. The decision shocked the industry because India was not just another market. It was the world's largest motorcycle nation, with millions of new riders entering the road every year. Harley had invested heavily, opening showrooms in major cities, signing local partnerships, and even producing smaller displacement models to fit local tastes. Yet despite the promise, sales collapsed. The pricing was wrong, the product line was mismatched, and the brand never shook off its image as an expensive American import in a country defined by affordability. By late 2020, Harley folded its operations, closing most dealerships and leaving thousands of workers, customers, and suppliers stranded. Harley's retreat from India was humiliating, exposing its fragile expansion strategy. Without cultural roots or competitive pricing, it faltered against Hero, Bajaj, and Royal Enfield. Losing a market of over 1 billion people cost Harley money, credibility, and global stature. The Strike series now carries eerie echoes of that failure. Like the India project, the Strike is pitched as a bold attempt to capture new riders with a supposedly affordable machine. Like India, the pricing is still too high, and the cultural resonance is missing. If Harley could not crack India with a strategy built for growth, why would it succeed in America or Europe with a similar blueprint? History is not just a record of mistakes, it is a warning. Rivals wasted no time moving into the space Harley abandoned. Rival opportunists. While Harley grapples with identity crises and shaky finances, rivals are seizing ground. Polaris, through its Indian motorcycle brand, has sharpened its lineup with machines that capture both tradition and modern appeal. The Scout series, for instance, offers heritage styling, but at prices that undercut Harley's comparable models. Riders who might once have automatically chosen Harley now look across the showroom and see Indian as the fresher, more affordable option. For every disillusioned Harley loyalist, Indian offers a welcoming alternative. Beyond Polaris, Japanese makers like Yamaha and Honda sell affordable cruisers appealing to younger buyers, while Royal Enfield dominates emerging markets. Harley's delays, tariffs, and disenchanted riders create openings competitors eagerly seize, converting missteps into captured sales worldwide. What makes this especially dangerous for Harley is that once customers defect, they rarely return. Loyalty in the motorcycle world is built on identity, community, and trust. When riders trade their Harley patches for another badge, they bring friends, families, and local groups with them. What begins as a lost sale can ripple outward into lost communities. By fumbling the Strike series and alienating its core audience, Harley may have triggered a migration of riders that will enrich its rivals for decades. The real collision point, though, was not in boardrooms, but on factory floors. Union Flashpoint. Factories like York, Pennsylvania, once echoed with the pride of American craftsmanship. Generations of workers built Harleys there, tying their livelihoods to the roar of every finished motorcycle. But today, those jobs face uncertainty. As sales shrink and production slows, unions are bracing for conflict. The specter of layoffs looms, and rumors swirl about plant closures or consolidations. Workers who already endured rounds of restructuring are preparing for another fight to preserve wages and benefits. Harley's crisis is structural, not cyclical. By betting on untested models like the strike and neglecting proven lines, jobs are endangered. Fewer shipments mean shorter shifts, smaller paychecks, and weakened local economies reliant on factory stability. Union leaders warn that the next battle could resemble past confrontations where strikes and work stoppages paralyzed production lines. A company already bleeding from weak demand cannot afford more disruptions. Yet if layoffs escalate, conflict will be unavoidable. Harley's problems are no longer confined to boardrooms or dealerships. They are etched into the daily worries of thousands of workers. Those factory tremors soon echoed in the wallets of riders everywhere. If you've stayed with me this far, you know this isn't just a motorcycle story. It's a fight over money, jobs, and identity. Subscribe right now so you don't miss the next chapter, because the moment Harley shifts again, you'll want to know first. Consumer cliffhanger. For the everyday rider, Harley's disaster is already visible. Prices on core models have crept upward year after year, far outpacing wage growth. Entry-level bikes like the strike promise affordability but deliver disappointment once hidden costs and financing are included. Loyalists find themselves paying more for less, and prospective buyers walk away altogether. The choices on showroom floors have narrowed as Harley slashes its lineup to focus on fewer models, leaving customers with limited options at inflated prices. Harley's shrinking lineup weakens its appeal. Riders once chose from Sportsters, Tourers, and Customs, but now feel forced into overpriced models. Even accessories cost more, making upkeep burdensome. Freedom's brand now feels like financial confinement. The long-term danger is that consumers will stop considering Harley altogether. If the strike fails to capture new buyers and older models remain out of reach, the brand risks becoming irrelevant. And once irrelevance sets in, recovery is nearly impossible. Harley's identity was built on presence, on being everywhere, from highways to small-town bars. Losing that visibility means losing cultural dominance. Riders may still whisper about Harleys with nostalgia, but they will be riding something else. For Harley fans, the question is no longer when the company will rebound, but whether it can at all. This isn't just the end of a video. It's the start of something bigger. Harley-Davidson is standing on the edge, and the decisions made in the next few months could reshape prices, jobs, and even what motorcycles mean to us. That's why you can't afford to miss what comes next. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me here. Because when the next wave of news breaks, and it will, you'll want to be among the first to know the truth.